everyone, welcome back, and we will explore now music education in Berlin, and we have again a great panel, and it will be led by Nicky Böhm, content curator at Refuge Worldwide Radio, which is a community radio station and fundraising platform based in Berlin, where she co-hosts a monthly show called Face the Music. And the guests are Will Kinsella, a live artist and sound engineer of the Elevator program from the HBL studios, Mathew, Jonson, CEO, mentor and artist at Freedom Engine Academy and Wagon Repair, and Lilia van Beukering, an artist relation manager and founder of the Femme Bass Mafia, and Gaby D'Annunzio, co-founder and managing director of Open Music Lab. I hope you will enjoy the conversation around music education in Berlin, because basically it's all about the next generation. See you later for the Q&As. Don't forget the chat if you like to ask questions. We will have a 5-minute session for questions at the end. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Nicky, and today we're going to be talking about music education in Berlin. I'm joined here by some wonderful people who are doing great things to level the playing field here. And Gaby, if I may start with you, could you tell us a little bit about the Open Music Lab and what you're doing to make this community more equitable and inclusive?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So the Open Music Lab is really working towards making a more sort of equitable music scene by, including people from diverse backgrounds. And we really try to work in this supportive environment and create spaces where people feel comfortable and welcome in the music schools. So something that we do is we make sure that we are, always checking in with our community and making sure that, they feel supported. And so I'm really nervous. And I think, particularly because we are working with vulnerable communities, it's important that even though someone is enrolled on a course, we are checking in with them to make sure that they are still able to attend. And if they're not, we make sure that we can still offer them support, and that they can come back when the time is right for them. If someone's going through the asylum process, then they've got a lot going on outside of the school. So we really want to make sure that we are approaching the work that we do with a lot of care, and we think a lot about people's well-being and making sure that that is a priority, and that's sort of how we approach the work that we're doing. And also we have this sort of non-hierarchical structure. So when mentors come in and teach, it's really like an open dialogue, and everyone is sort of contributing to this learning experience. And a lot of our students will also give us feedback, and we're always checking to see, what they're interested in learning in and how we can sort of grow together. So that's a really important part of the process. And I think, we've learned so much from our community. And, I think also it's important to think about how when you're working with such a diverse community, everyone is sort of learning in different ways. So really embracing that, and it also creates a really interesting place to learn, because we've got people from all different walks of life, and it creates a really exciting, inspirational place to be musically. So I think I feel incredibly lucky to be part of that, because our students have such interesting takes on music, and I'm constantly feeling enriched by this community of music makers.
Thanks, Gaby. Lilia, maybe you'd also like to tell us a little bit about what you do at Femme-Based Mafia, because I know there are some parallels to the space that Gaby works within.
Yeah, definitely. So Femme-Based Mafia is a DJing mentorship program for femme, trans, and non-binary people. And we basically aim at providing a safer space for people who struggle to get access to DJing and its practice. So we basically came up with a 6 months training program where Berlin-based DJs are teaching a group of participants who applied via an open call. And we basically, go through everything that's theory related. We also touch on topics like mental health with a few workshops. We also make sure that they get like check-ins every few weeks just to see, like their goals, what they want to do with this new skill. And we also then move to the more like practice part where we basically teach them all the basics and follow them in their artistic journey, and from there we give them, or we try to give them as many opportunities as possible, should it be like a radio show on Refuge Worldwide or other club gigs or other streaming platforms, all in collaboration, mostly with Berlin-based media and venues and organizations.
Fantastic, thank you. And Will, I know you've got something called the Elevator Program, which you started last year, and there's also like a community aspect on Discord, isn't there? Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's great to be here with all your platforms, by the way. You do fantastic stuff, it's brilliant. We're like, basically, I've been teaching since about 2010, so I quit my job in 2008, studied sound music tech and took over the electronic music syllabus. So further down the line, I kind of wanted to develop a platform that I'd hand to my younger self, that I wouldn't have to like quit my job and go, make all these terrible financial decisions that I did back then. But the program itself was kind of very centered around composition and mixing, mastering, getting tracks finished, getting tracks ready to go to record labels and stuff like that. So we also launched a record label for graduates, and we've like a Discord community, which at the start was me kind of pushing it, but then people are kind of talking amongst themselves. So it's just a place for people to connect. I think like Richie has one, and there's a good few like really cool Colin Benders as well. He's done some really nice ones. So I thought it was a really good way to get just people talking. And I think when you get people talking, that's when, especially creative people, that's when like things happen. Club nights, labels, collaborations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think generally we're all about creating communities and strengthening them and seeing how we can do that on a sort of digital level as well as like, offline. Mathew, would you like to tell us about your Freedom Engine Academy?
Yeah, hi everybody. Freedom Engine Academy, it's just a brand new company that was started at the beginning of the year. And we are doing online classes with a very diverse group of people who are mainly young people from all around the world, actually. And we also offer a scholarship program so that we can be as inclusive as possible. And so we give about 5,000 euros of scholarship money to every semester that we do, and we kind of just split that up as it's needed. So some people may be able to take the academy for free, or some people may have some assistance. It's really just dependent on each individual person. And it was quite a success. It's very nice to see so many people from all around the world collaborating and working with each other. So, yeah.
And you have mentors as well. It's not just you doing it, right?
So, there's 6 of us who are instructing, and so I'm actually not a trained music instructor. So I felt as though it would be best for me to hire people actually to take on the roles of teaching music engineering, classical and jazz contemporary piano, and also teaching Ableton Live, and then I teach 7 lessons as well.
Brilliant. As you mentioned before, Will, you've worked as a DJ and you're a sound engineer and a producer. Was it like a conscious decision for you to like diversify your income streams?
Conscious and necessary, I think. I was more based in Ireland, so for a long time I've been in Berlin for 3 years. But I think for me, what was necessary was to be in the industry and be around other people in the industry, and also to kind of survive. So if someone said, "Hey, do you want to teach this class?" or "Hey, I need you to mix this track," or "Will you record this band?" or do you want to bring over, here's a club, do you want to bring over some DJs, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of, and any opportunities that came my way, I kind of jumped at them, because when you're freelance, you kind of have to take the work when it's there, you know. I launched the Hybrasil live project in like 2016, so from that point, a lot more of my focus went back towards studio mixing and education, and so kind of pulled them back a bit. It took me a while, it took me like a year to kind of narrow it down to like a couple of different ones. But I think in terms of like, especially if you're freelance and something I didn't really, I wasn't really financially very literate leaving school. Not that I didn't have a good education, it was just the focus on finance and managing your finances wasn't really there. So I wasn't very good at that side of things, but I did learn from being freelance and stuff to kind of generate revenue when you can, save money when you can. If you need equipment, buy it when you have at the right time and that kind of stuff, and try avoid debt and those kind of things. So to bring it back to the question, I think it's a combination of both. But if you're freelance, you kind of, I think it's good to have a couple of different sources of revenue.
Yeah, and obviously, like the pandemic threw us all like a massive curveball last year, and everyone had to suddenly like pivot and think on their feet. And I just, this can go to anyone who wants to answer. You know, just like how did you react to that, and how did you have to change? I mean, Gaby, like obviously before everything was in person, and then suddenly, I'm guessing everything went online. So how was that for you?
Yeah, so it was actually a really interesting period for us, because part of our work is really about being with people and creating a space where people feel welcome to make music. And so suddenly having to move everything online, we really had to stop and think about how we were working with our community. And during that period, we thought it would be a good, point in time to sort of reflect on our work and really sort of engage with our community more in sort of conversation and dialogue, and find out really, what they need in terms of, music education, or in terms of community and growing in the sort of, in their career development in the music industry. So it was actually a really good point for us to sort of think about how we were approaching our work. And we organized a couple of co-creation sessions with our community, and we learned a lot through that process, and then sort of moved everything online. It was also an opportunity for us to work with more mentors from different parts of the world, so it gave us sort of access to a wider reach of musicians and producers that we could work with. It was an exciting period for us somehow to know that we can, still work in this way, but it was of course challenging to work online when you're making music and working with that community. So, yeah.
And have you now moved to like a sort of hybrid situation? Because, you're talking about wanting to having this holistic approach where you can adapt to people's needs, and obviously face-to-face is great for lots of people, but for some people it's not necessarily where they're always at, mentally. So is that sort of where you're...
Definitely. I think it's made us more flexible now, actually, because, so for example, last week we went to Funkhaus to do a listening session with our students, and one of the students wasn't very well, wasn't able to attend in person, but we were still able to Zoom them in and listen to their music and give them feedback. And it also means that we can work with communities or people that can't necessarily access the space, or maybe don't feel comfortable anymore to be sort of in a social situation. So it does allow us to work in this sort of way where we can have sessions with people in person, but we can also do them online, or allow people to join from their homes as well. So it's definitely like changed the way we work. Yeah.
And how about you, Lilia? How is it? Because you started as well, like last year, so...
Actually, the project is quite young, so we started the first courses this year, earlier this year. So we did a few courses online, which was, we did have like mixed feelings about it, especially when it's touching upon, like mental health subjects or things where you actually would prefer to have like a person in front of you. So we did get like some frustration from the mentors' side. But then we got pretty lucky, and the restrictions lifted, and we managed to meet in person. So I didn't really experience this, shift towards online platforms. And I also do not think that we would have proceeded if we couldn't meet in real. I feel like it's an essential part of education, especially DJing, which is a bit more complicated to convey through a screen rather than production. So yeah, we got pretty lucky.
I know, Will, you just touched upon how important it is for people to be within the music creators to be financially literate, and that's sometimes something that's left out of the education equation. I wonder how much, within your courses, whether it be on your one Mathew or your one Will, your students get an understanding of the wider business aspect of the music industry,
Well, it was actually something I shied away from a little bit at first. I had some business situations in the past years that were actually a little bit difficult for myself, so I chose to leave that out of the music education just because I was actually being triggered a little bit by it myself. But actually now in the next semester that we're going to be offering in June, we will be bringing on Maxime Leonard, who's been the promoter for Caprices Festival in Switzerland. And so he's actually going to come in and be the mentor for the business end of allowing people to understand what goes into booking and throwing shows and all this stuff. So yeah, it is important, I think. Especially with the people who are joining us. Most of the people we're working with, they have some experience touring and playing shows, but to get a deeper understanding of that, of course, it's quite important.
Yeah, how you can dodge those pitfalls, and there are quite a lot of them, aren't there?
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult industry. I think it's to be able to navigate that and do so in a way that isn't taxing on your creativity and also just your personal life it can be challenging at times. I know many artists actually who are perhaps some of the most talented people I know that have had to quit the industry because of their relationship with managers or agents, and because they hold their music so dear to them and it is such an emotional thing for them, it can be very detrimental if they're feeling as though they're not being treated fairly in the industry.
Totally. How about you, Will? I know you mentioned that you've got a label, which obviously gives them a structure to sort of plug into once they finish the course.
Yeah, I think what Mathew said is spot on there. It's a tough conversation to have, balancing art and business, especially when if you're sitting in a studio writing music, you're not thinking about that side of it. It's not all that compatible. So you kind of, in some ways, you have to kind of treat yourself almost as like an entrepreneur or as a business itself. And it's a very strange thing to say about music, but it's just purely from the point of view: 1, you have to eat; 2, you have to survive; 3, pay rent. All these things that should be first and foremost. And just protecting yourself for those rainy kind of days is something we always try to instill in people. And then just kind of making sure people are manage their expectations about, when they do their first release, that can take some months to get out there, get mastered, promoted, etc. So when they have their first release, they're not going to be making thousands of euros on fees, you know what I mean? So it's really kind of trying to point them in the direction of thinking about, okay, how am I going to map out the next maybe 2-3 years, and what's the best way to do that? So I'm in a position, 1, to cover my expenses; 2, to be able to invest maybe in equipment that I want; and 3, be able to kind of make the leap and have enough time to write music and have the headspace to do it. Because if you're struggling with rent or anything like that, that will just suck the creativity out of you. So really, what we're trying to do is to give people the kind of headspace, or advise them to give themselves the headspace to focus on the art, but also, make sure they're covered in other areas as well. So it is a delicate balance, and this kind of can be tricky balance to get, but it's an important one for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know at Open Music Lab, you're 100% volunteer and donation powered. How is it? How easy or hard is it to make ends meet? And
Yeah, so I think we're incredibly lucky that we have so many amazing volunteers that offer their time and give incredible workshops. And I think, yeah, just to take a moment to thank everyone that's contributed, because every single person that has made an impact. So, yeah, really grateful for that. And of course, we have donations in terms of equipment and music software that makes it possible for us to teach. But yeah, it's been hard for us to find financial support to support the projects. I think what we found is that often with funding, you have to write a proposal that maybe takes away from the work that you're doing. So you invest your energy in creating a new project. So it's really about finding a fund that will actually fund the work that you're doing so that you can continue sort of growing in that capacity. But recently we've been more lucky and fortunate with funding. So funding our sort of 5-month course that we're doing, our production course. So that's been really helpful for us to continue that work. And we're also now looking to work with more sort of corporate companies and supporting us financially in the work that we're doing. But I think it's always difficult working with bigger companies because they, have their sort of views on how they want to work with you, but you also need to make sure that you align with your values, and so that you're still providing the support that you need to with the community. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's still something that we're trying to navigate. And I think also just being a non-profit, there is an assumption there that you will do the work for free. So it's also just about knowing our value as a non-profit and making sure that, we do ask for support. And I think that's something that we've really sort of learned in the last couple of years.
yeah, I know you've got there's a cookbook out at the moment, isn't there? Which everyone should go and buy. 'Cause it's great.
Yeah, there's a cookbook called Turn the Tables. It's my friend James Martin that put it together, and it's a DJ charity cookbook, which has got recipes from an incredible selection of DJs and producers, and that the profits are going towards the music school. Yeah.
Lilia, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on like diverse lineups, because obviously at Fan-Based Mafia you work with trans and non-binary artists, and I wanted to ask your opinion to see if you were hopeful that when they break through, that there's going to be, that the lineups are going to be more representative and diverse.
Where to start? I'm hopeful that the scene will change and that the lineups are going to get more diverse over time. I feel like I've been extremely naive when I started this, thinking that only organizations like FBM or others, which are really great, but it doesn't. I think it's not enough. So I think we can only do so much in terms of, like educating the scenes, educating promoters, educating bookers. I think it's really time for male allies to start shouting for us, because I think we so far just achieved, to put a crack in the shell, but to crack it completely open, we need, our allies to act, and this could be with so many things. I know some male DJs who have in their rider, like a minimum amount of, female or femme-presenting people on the lineup, and I think more male DJs should start screaming that and refusing gigs and speaking up for us, because otherwise we're not going to get there.
Mathew, you're a male DJ, and you're back on the road. what are your thoughts on this? Like, what have
Yeah,
you seen so far?
I've said no to gigs, and I've
Thanks.
said no to compilations, actually. And it's quite interesting to get into the conversation with the labels or the promoters about that. And it's they sometimes are responsive and they know where I'm coming from, and that I feel it's important. And then other times I get a response as though it's kind of like, okay, well, we tried, but nobody's available, or something, or you know. And so I've said, okay, well, I'm sorry. And sometimes those were labels that I've worked with for many years. Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm also trying to educate myself about as well too. I'm certainly not so aware about many of the issues myself, but I'm trying to understand and doing my part.
I'm assuming, I mean, what would be interesting as well to know what the sort of gender split is on your courses. Is it mainly male?
Yeah,
Or-
actually,
yeah.
I was quite happy. There's actually lots of female, some people from the LGBTQ plus community as well, and it was actually very diverse. Yeah,
Great.
I'm happy to say.
Good, good. How about you, Will? Do you need some help from the...
We
the
found
girls.
that actually there was more balance for online courses than bricks and mortar courses, because I used to do these kind of boot camps, and maybe 1 or 2 out of 10, small groups, but 1 or 2 out of 10 might be female. Whereas online, I'm seeing more 30-40%, which kind of tells you maybe that's a safer kind of situation to be in, or maybe more comfortable, you know.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it was just making me think of what you were saying at the beginning, Gaby, you know, about there being a choice to start off with, but also, yeah, I think it can be less intimidating often for women to, you know, sometimes there's like just a different energy, isn't there, when you're, and if you're, you know, the sort of, there's only a couple of you and the majority is, you know, they're all guys, then I think often it can be quite intimidating for some women. So that's really cool to hear. I know, of course, there's the Key Change are doing great things, and they've got this pledge which festivals and events can sign up to ensure like gender parity by 2022. So yeah, I really hope we're going to get there, because it's needed.
Most of the people who've come through our program, like our social media managers, female, actually most kind of engaged, nearly the most engaged participants in our program. We also have a magazine as well, and Olympus is an amazing live artist. She's a contributor to that as well. So I think like there's so much to offer there, you know what I mean? And I think it's been great to see more engagement on the online stuff from female participants. But we've had the actual people who've stood out in our groups have been female, and they've been a huge help to us. I'd be lost without them, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely good to see that kind of engagement online.
Cool. I know you were saying to me once that some of the people who are on full and partial scholarships tend to as well sometimes be the most engaged on your course.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess also part of it is that we have an application process, so it's not just kind of like a click and you're in, and so that way I can also moderate a little bit what the class is made up of and who, and yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if you give access to people across different communities, especially ones that are underrepresented, they are, you know, tend to be more keen than ones who kind of take it for granted that they should be part of that space.
Yeah, I mean, without the people actually that were on all of the scholarships, I think the classes would have been a little bit lifeless at times because I'm not sure why, but the people who were coming from like more like the upper class, I guess you could say, were the people that had their screens turned off or sometimes wouldn't show up for class, and it was just kind of like, okay, I paid my tuition fee, but it's not really so important, you know. And yeah, so it actually makes sense to do it. I mean, without having that scholarship program, it would have been a very different dynamic, actually.
Gaby, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because I think if you give someone an opportunity, there is this sense of gratitude, and they are very much engaged because of that. I think they feel very lucky that they have been given this opportunity, so they really make the most out of that. And I think that's something that we experience a lot within our community. There's a sense of real gratitude that creates this really positive learning environment. So yeah, I can see how that, you know, if you are giving scholarships out, that people are really engaged and getting a lot out of your courses. Yeah.
There's a saying, you have to fail to learn. So I wondered, as you've all, started things, I wondered what you'd learned and what you failed at, and what you've learned from those failures. If you'd like to share something. Who wants to go first?
I mean, I can say because I just started the academy in July. It was our first semester. And I kind of wanted to know what it would be like to kind of dive all in and make myself available 24/7 to all of my participants and see what that would be like. So we had a community Discord platform that everybody could ask questions and collaborate with each other and share their work, and of course ask me questions as well. And so I had my notifications on my phone beeping at me 24/7 all week long, and I was kind of like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to. That was something that now I know that I'll have to change a little bit, and now I understand why university professors have office hours that they meet with their participants and students. So that was one thing that I learned a little bit. The other thing was actually putting a little bit too much expectation on everybody. I have a exercise called 1 beat per day, where I ask everybody to just to write one bass line and a drum beat or something, like just 10 minutes a day minimum to kind of get people in the habit of writing music. But I found that people started feeling guilty because they just didn't do it, and so I'm trying to restructure ways of still getting people inspired, but not necessarily stressing them out with overloading them with having to think about it too much, I guess.
And one thing, it's not like a failure, but I know you mentioned as well now that everything's kicking in again with touring, like, just scheduling, the next semester, will have to be pushed back, and how you're going to kind of juggle the two.
Yeah. I mean, when I launched the academy, actually in August, I had 6 shows booked, and I thought that I was going to be able to teach once a week, have my community contacting me for questions during the week, and take shows on the weekend. And luckily, all 6 of those shows canceled, which is unlucky for me, and financially, of course, and for performing in front of people again. But if I had to do that, I would have crashed and burned. And then, so now what I've realized is that I can't tour at all. Actually, when I do the class for 3 months, then I need to just focus on that, and then I can take the time to tour. That's the way I can balance it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gaby, what about you?
Well, I feel like I've failed many times, but in the process, learned a lot. I think, if I think back to when I first moved to Berlin, I started working in the art world, and it was sort of always a dream for me to work in a creative industry. And I realized quite quickly that it wasn't really something that I wanted to pursue, and I really lost a lot of confidence in that process, and I felt like I'd really failed, because it was a dream of mine to sort of pursue this career. And during that period of time, I started volunteering again, and this is when I sort of had the idea to run a music workshop at a refugee center. And yeah, if it wasn't for that period of time where I really felt like I'd failed and started sort of this new journey, I wouldn't have ended up, you know, creating this music school with Ben Osborne. So yeah, I think it's important to somehow embrace those moments of feeling like you failed and just trust that it will take you in a new direction.
Thank you. Will?
Yeah, like obviously fail is a strong word, but I guess any like tough situation or situation where you put a lot of work into, it could be a club project or something like this. Like I've had plenty of shows that were quite difficult and stuff, but I think what it takes to get through that is resilience and stuff, and that's what stands to you on the other side of whatever you're really pushing forward for. So it could be a case that you just need to push through that. You know, no industry is linear. You know, there's always tough months. There's always kind of like that kind of thing. So I think pushing through those things, showing resilience, and pushing through the other side. And I think sometimes finding solutions to a situation that you're in can sometimes kickstart the next phase of your project, or maybe a pivot to a new direction.
Totally, yeah. Lilia?
I totally feel Mathew on this one, in the sense of being way too available for your students, just always wanting to go, you know, to the next step, and you know, really like they are like your children, so you basically like carry them from A to Z and hope for the best, but it's definitely wing burning. So I learned that I need to separate. Yeah, my office hours, my FBM office hours, and my emotional availability office hours. And yeah, there's also this thing of, you know, starting an educational program from scratch when you're not formed to do this. Yeah, I feel like we failed on a few topics there. You know, the process, some missing things, some essential missing courses. You know. And just, yeah, the need to go really fast because you're in the rush of the process. You want to create something, you want to build a community, and you basically kind of lose track of like taking a moment, breathing, and then saying like, yes, no, we can do this, can't do that. That's been a journey.
Yeah, and Matt, you mentioned about you know, the possibility of crashing and burning, and mental health is obviously incredibly important, as you just mentioned, Lilia. We all touched upon it today. Does anyone have any tips for striking that elusive work-life balance? Because it's really hard. I'd like to know how to do it.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to strike a good balance between work-life sort of things, and I've definitely burnt out myself a couple of times, but I think I've learned a lot in that process, and I think it's about acknowledging and noticing the signs of knowing when you are burning out. So, you know, these feelings of feeling exhausted and cognitively and physically, and feeling sort of less positive about the work that you're doing, and also sort of drawing away from your work, feeling apathetic, and also just sort of doubting your ability to finish or complete projects. And I think in moments like that, when you notice that you are sort of burning out, or your mental health is having an impact, it's important to prioritize like self-care and making sure that you make time to do things that give you sort of good energy. So, for example, exercise or meditating or journaling or cooking, you know. So I think it's about sort of, noticing the signs and making sure that you then, make sure that you can find time to do things that are going to give you energy back and rest, so that you can then go back to, working with a new sort of perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it's also important as well to gravitate, if possible, towards communities that prioritize that, because I think a massive part of the music industry is that whole FOMO, fear of missing out. You have to be across everything and do everything, otherwise you're not going to be able to pay your rent, or you're going to miss that amazing opportunity. And I think the more we talk about this, and the more it gets prioritized, the more it will be part of the culture, and all those things that you recommended will be easier to implement if you don't feel guilty about it at the same time, you know. Does anyone else have any insights here they'd like to add?
Yeah, for sure. When, especially when the pandemic kicked off, I kind of went into this frenzy of working, either writing music or mixing stuff for other people, or I just got it into my head, the harder I work, you know, everything will be fine, you know, because that's kind of the thing I grasped control of, or I had control of, you know. But the real consequence of everything needs balance, like, so the real consequence of imbalance, something has to give. So you're either going to get tired, run down, maybe you get sick or cold or something like this, you know. So I think really giving yourself those times where your phone is away and you're just watching your favorite show or reading a book or doing whatever it is that you do. Try to get some regular exercise, like 3 times a week, and being able to say to yourself at a point, it's like, oh, actually, you know what, maybe I need to like talk to someone outside my circle of friends, maybe talk to a counsellor or whatever like that. There's lots of great counsellors around. So sometimes you got to make that decision and just go, I need to talk to someone. That can also be really important. But balance is key, from, you know, work to life, and, you know, socializing to not socializing as well. It's important to know when to even things out.
Yeah, and also how you socialize, you know, what's in the mix obviously has a big impact on things. Lilia, anything to add?
Well, I'm myself struggling at the moment to find my work-life extra project balance, but I suppose, you know, like blocking time off and being very strict with your time, the people you see, the projects you want to work with, and yeah, just really focusing on yourself, boundaries all over. It also, goes hand in hand with the industry FOMO, you know, like now that events and partying is back, you also have to kind of juggle that, what to say no to, where to go, do you really feel comfortable going there, and just really trusting yourself. But yeah, I'm no expert.
So if anyone here is interested in taking part of the courses and workshops that you offer, obviously they can Google and see what to do. But I mean, Lilia, you're about to, are you starting like a new mentorship cycle, or what's coming up, what's on the cards?
It started a few months ago, and we're going until February, and then we'll have our graduation process mid-Feb, starting March, and from there I suppose we're going to take a little bit of time off to get like a good feedback round and see what needs to be changed in the mentoring program and everything, and from there will be the possibility to reapply for another cycle of 6 months training, probably towards end of spring next year.
Okay, and I know you put on nights as well, don't you, that people can cut?
Sorry?
You have nights as well, don't you, in Berlin, like where you're, what do you call them, Bass Angels?
Yes, we have our next Bass Angels event at Paloma next year, probably around International Women's Day. And it's basically, you know, club nights where all the mentees that have been learning in the courses can, you know, perform in a club setting. And the last one was a few weeks ago, and it was absolutely exciting. And what a great, overwhelming turnout.
And Mathew, when's the next semester starting? It's got pushed back, didn't it?
Yeah, we're going to start the application process actually in 2 weeks. And it got pushed back. Yeah, originally it was going to be mid-November, but with everything opening up, I've just been touring nonstop for the past couple months. So it'll start mid-January.
Okay, and then you just check it out online and you can...
Yeah, that's actually part of the kind of me finding the balance of my life, is that now I can do 3 months of the school and recharge the batteries, and then I can do a little bit of touring afterwards, and this is the new way.
Great, sounds healthy. And Gaby, what's the Open Music Lab got in store?
So yeah, at the moment we are running one of our sort of more long-term courses, and next year we will be doing an advanced course, because part of what we do as well is making sure that we offer ongoing support to our community. And now we realize that we've got some incredibly talented people making amazing music, and they're very skillful, but they're also still looking for a community space where they can make music and progress in other areas, maybe looking more sort of like on the industry side of things or developing their artistic persona. So that's something that we're planning for the new year. And we'll also run another radio workshop series where we take our students through a 7-week course, focusing on developing an idea for a radio show and working through sort of interview and research techniques, and as well as like audio editing and sound design, and then putting a show together that will be aired on Refuge worldwide. So we'll also be doing more open sessions, so people can just drop in. It's not a curriculum-based session, it's just based on someone or musician, creative, coming to share their practice. So it could be anything from lyric writing, vocals, or field recordings. So yeah, we hope to start doing those again in the new year.
Brilliant. And where do they take place? Where's the space?
So it's at this space on Linaustrasse, which is part of Give Something Back to Berlin, which is another charity organization that we actually sit underneath. We'll be hosting most of them there, and of course we will also make it available for people to join online.
Brilliant. And Will, is it like a sort of rolling thing with your?
Yeah, we pretty much have a kind of rolling system at the moment. We did talk to a lot of students this year if they wanted more to work in more cohorts, or it was like 50-50 down the middle. So we're kind of keeping it quite flexible at the moment. But I do like the cohort idea where you have a group working together, going through the system. So that's maybe something we look at next year. But I've been working with a good few artists that have been going through the program, and we've signed signed an album and 2 EPs, so we're placing more emphasis on the label next year, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, exciting. Cool. Maybe we should open it up now for the Q&A.
So I have one question from the audience, which is directly asked to you, Will. The question for Hybrasil.
Yep.
How did you make the move, from Ireland to becoming music tech instructor in Berlin? As it is something I was considering myself before the COVID happened. So how did you make it from Ireland to Berlin as an instructor?
Okay, that's a good question, actually. I had been based in Ireland for a good while and had different revenue streams and stuff, and I kind of just said, I'm going to Berlin, that's it. We had set a date and we went. I had a show in Amnesia, and I was like, right, I can use the flight over, do the show, and go straight to Berlin. So whatever studio equipment I could bring with me, I did. So it was a bit of a risk, but what I did in preparation for that was really, I came over for a few months in 2012. I said I wouldn't come back till I really dug into my craft. So worked for years and years and years and years, really building up my skill set. And then it kind of organically happened when I came over. I was signed to Records pretty soon after, and I helped out with the Serve Live show, and I met other artists through Records. Just kind of met artists in Berlin. I also got introduced to the guys in the SAE Institute. I teach some modules with them, and so it was very much kind of building my network slowly, but also giving myself that time to adjust. And in that time, I built Elevator program, because at the start, I didn't have work lined up, but had some shows that covered it over. So if someone else is doing it, I'd say one, make sure you're at a place where you really want to be technically. 2, save up money so you have yourself covered if you have a couple of months where you may be struggling with revenue and stuff like that. And when you get over, just meet up with people, but don't get sucked into the party thing. You have to actually kind of get out there, and you you might need to get a job to tie you over or something like that. But it really comes down to balance and like some planning and just making sure you save some money, because it can be tricky depending on your situation, you know. So that'd be how I'd approach it.
Okay. Well, thank you in the name of NJ Strange.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
to speak. I don't have any further question, but I don't know if anyone here in the audience has a burning question. No, so I'll let you close it then.
Yeah. And I think that's a wrap, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah,
everyone.
thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of
Bye.
you. Wonderful.